PragerU's video, The Bravery Deficit, featuring Dave Rubin, dips their toes into bigotry, skitters around statistics, and then dives face first into right-wing tropes, all to paint the narrative of oppression. It's very on brand for PragerU. So what form does this oppression take? Should you be afraid to express yourself? Is there a bravery deficit in the United States? Well, let's shine a light into this murky troll den to find out. Do you watch Fox News with your finger on the back button? Do you delete your browser history of PragerU videos? Do you hide your subscription to Ben Shapiro? Or, most dangerous of all, are you afraid being caught watching Mark Rubin's The Rubin Report? Well, then you're in the political closet. Take the wrong side of any hot-button issue, and your job, your friends, and your reputation can all be gone in an instant. As you're probably aware, the closet is a metaphor for being secretly queer. People who are gay, bi, or trans hide who they are or what they really want until they feel sufficiently safe or completely overwhelmed with pain to finally come out. But this is a simplistic narrative. It can take a long time to really find yourself, and the journey can be a painful one. The fear we experience is very grounded in reality. At the time my parents were born, it was illegal to be me. But things have improved quite a bit since then. For example, I only lost 2 jobs and half my family for coming out as trans. I'm pretty lucky in that regard. The imagery that PragerU uses, watching things with your finger on the back button, deleting your browser history, or hiding your subscriptions, are all lifted from the genuine stories of queer people and then twisted to fit a narrative. Those stories have meaning because they're things that we have done and continue to do to prevent ourselves being ostracized, thrown out, or even beaten by our family. The fear of losing your support system and everything that's important to you in your life can cripple you. That fear is what builds our closet, and it's what kept me in the closet for most of my life. It's clever to co-opt the imagery of fear to a new cause, but does it really apply? Is being fired from your job, thrown from your home, or beaten to death for holding hands with your partner really the same as being canceled on Twitter? What examples does Dave give of the oppression that conservatives are facing right now? Believe that men can't give birth? Then you're a transphobe. Think people should keep more of what they earn because they know how to spend it better than the government? Well, then you're a greedy capitalist. Understand that the gender pay gap is because men and women choose different professions and hours, and not because of rampant sexism? Congratulations, you're a misogynist. Hold on. That's it? You get called a name? Oh, the oppression. It must be really hard, Dave. Now, seriously. All of these examples are chosen very intentionally, and they're phrased to sound super rational. But let's dig into each of these a little bit. Believe that men can't give birth? Well, then you're a transphobe. Okay, to a certain audience, that might sound like a perfectly rational statement. After all, most men lack the anatomy to give birth. However, words can have meaning beyond the ones that are stated. They have context. This statement has a very transphobic context. What it is really saying is, trans men are not men, they are women. As trans people, we experience violence and prejudice just for our existing. We face it at work, at the grocery store, going to the bathroom, or just walking down the street. My existence is an issue to be debated, and the other side of the transgender issue is very dehumanizing. It ignores all of our experiences and the most fundamental right of a human being. That is, the ability to say, this is who I am. We are rendered fundamentally invalid. This viewpoint claims that we are the gender that we were assigned at birth, and asking everyone for special treatment. Play along with me and pretend that I'm pretty. This claim of metaphysical skepticism is what underlies all levels of prejudice towards us. It ignores the modern understanding of genetics, that sex is a spectrum. It ignores the modern understanding of psychology, that gender is a spectrum which is internal to us all. And it ignores the modern understanding of medicine, that very often the best way to treat gender dysphoria is with transition. That is to say, living as your true self can be a way out of daily pain so bad that you'd rather die than experience it anymore. Not to say that transition is easy. It can be hell. But living as myself for the last 2 years is not something I would trade for absolutely anything. So yes, Dave, transphobe is a pretty accurate label for someone who makes a statement which hits at the very core of all transphobic prejudice towards us. Think people should keep more of what they earn because they know how to spend it better than the government? Then you're a greedy capitalist. Does anybody get canceled for this one? Because this sounds an awful lot like a phrase I've heard right at the core of a lot of modern conservative conversations on economics. And some even take the idea that greed is good to be the natural evolution of rational self-interest, as if they borrowed it straight from Gordon Gekko's mouth. Hold on. I think I've heard that somewhere before. The idea that people should keep more of what they've earned. But where was it from? Can't think of it. Understand that the gender pay gap is because men and women choose different professions and hours, and not because of rampant sexism? Dave Rubin, owning the patriarchy with statistics. Kinda. He seems to be citing the difference between the adjusted and non-adjusted pay gaps, where the adjusted pay gap tries to compare men and women's pay job to job and hour to hour. The non-adjusted pay gap takes a much wider look and compares men and women's pay more generally. Women's underrepresentation in certain fields and positions of power being exclusively down to their freedom of choice, and that sexism doesn't play any role at all, is a big claim. And having lived as both genders, I can tell you, sexism is alive and well. This claim attempts to invalidate the experience of sexism that a lot of women share with statistics that don't entirely support their claim, even though the study that those statistics comes from attempts to control for most of the effects of sexism. Yeah, Dave, that's pretty misogynistic. There's more to this video. Some attempts to own the libs, but where's all this going? Well, here's their paraphrased thesis. The mob is trying to ruin the discourse and prevent conservative voices from joining the debate. This will get worse. Liberal institutions will ensure that this social media oppression continues, all the while Western values are being eroded. Dave implores the viewer to be brave, like your grandparents and their parents before them, to speak up and speak out. You know, there is a kernel of truth to this video. The internet is awful. I'm looking at you, Twitter. People get harassed, doxxed, threatened, and that's wrong, no matter who it's coming from. The image of your grandparents that Dave uses definitely evokes a nostalgia for the greatest generation. People who were very hardworking and sacrificed a lot, who were also openly racist, misogynistic, homophobic, and transphobic. So what kind of bravery is Dave trying to cultivate here? Now, if your grandparents were in the greatest generation, then you're probably around Gen X. So, do any of you actually relate to this political closet narrative? Do you feel oppressed? Because, to my knowledge, no teenager's ever been thrown from their home for espousing fiscal conservatism. But if you do feel afraid to speak up, I feel for you. As a trans woman, I know that feeling very well. Keep in mind that freedom of speech is a two-way street, so if you use your platform, your voice, or your privilege to advocate for, say, taking away my rights, then I have the right, duty even, to speak out as well. So thank you, Dave Rubin. I'm taking your advice. I'm not going to be afraid of the insults, harassment, doxing, or death threats that trans women face on the internet. I'll be brave. Just like my grandparents. Thank you so much for watching my very first YouTube video. Please enjoy this picture of the most adorable dog ever while I ask you to like and subscribe, and please comment. Let me know what you think, and I look forward to seeing you in the next Imposter Syndrome.